session. We have Ms. Tanul Mishra, founder of the Afthonia Club, and she's a founder and CEO of Afthonia Lab, a Bangalore-based incubator focused solely on the fintech industry. Incepted in 2018, Afthonia Lab aims to be one-stop destination for fintech startups within industry, with an experienced body of mentors from diverse sectors in US and India. Thank you so much, Ms. Tanul Mishra, for coming here. The topic today for her is scaling up challenges and how incubators can help.
Hi. So I think more than a fireside chat, it's going to be a monologue, but I'll take questions at the end of the sessions if you guys like. Can I have a mic that I can move with? Do you know if the presentation is loaded? Hi. So while they load the presentation, let me tell you what incubators do and then what Afthonia does. Uh, you have India is like the third largest hub for startups in the world, US, China, and then India. But we'll go through some statistics that talk about how many successful startups versus how many get debt pooled, how many don't get investments, don't scale up. And one of the reasons is not bad ideas, but just having an adequate support system that can help you deal with those challenges. About having a place that's safe to experiment with, fail, learn, and move on from there. So that's what an incubator is supposed to do. You have about 200 incubators in India, and you have 2,400 in the US and 1,500 in China. So if you look at that kind of gap, what you're focusing on is a very inadequate system that's not really equipped to support startups. So that's why I worked on Afthonia. We focus on fintech, and we're based out of Bangalore. But what I really want to address in today's presentation, if it's up and ready, is what are the challenges that startups really face when you're trying to scale up, right? When you have an idea, one second. Do you have it ready? Do you know if it's up? Check with Bhavesh, but I'll walk you through otherwise. So, okay, so what happens when you have an idea? Once you have an idea out there, when you work on the prototype, it's the purest phase of innovation that you have, right? It's that time when you're really working in a silos or with your team or your co-founders in creating the idea. When you focus on scalability, what happens is that as you start scaling up, there are challenges. Servicing one customer versus servicing 10 or 100 customers, your problems extrapolate. And that's why we need to focus on fixing that gap, that chasm, and that comes from systemization. So the one thing that most startups need to focus on is systematization. So what do? You put processes in place, checks and balances in place. I ran a bootstrapped startup called Eatlish, and we sold out sometime this year. One of the things was we would source inventory and spices, condiments, and snacks from different parts of the country, and we would sell them. We were a B2B as well as a B2C. We would sell them online across 32 stores in countries, and so we needed to have really strong processes in place because you would have seasonal spikes. You would have products which would go out of, supply during seasonal phases. So what you need to do is rely on systems and also solutions. So like inventory management solutions for somebody like us, getting logistics partners, figuring out what happens during breakages. So getting your systemizations in place is extremely essential. And for that, if you need to rely on getting like advisors, mentors, experts in that region, or putting on your thinking hats and thinking what happens. Say that if you have a problem and you're addressing one person, one customer, and then this extrapolates to, say, 500,000 customers, the number of man hours which actually equals loss of operational expenses. I won't name the startup, but there was a startup which was into laundromat services. They would service, you could get your laundry picked up, washed, and delivered at home, and it's a very solid value proposition. They raised a fantastic amount of money, but they actually went down because they didn't have operations and systems in place. So the amount of time that they spent in giving customer cashbacks, delivering orders in the same area but multiple vans, their operational losses just mounted. Have any of you seen the Dunzo results and the operational expenses that they're incurring? Right. So that's what happens. It's a great value proposition. It's a service that you need, but if you're not going to have your systems in place as you're scaling up, you're bound to hit issues and fail, okay? So that's one. The other thing that I want to talk about here is credibility is extremely critical for startups. Credibility is linked to getting funding. Credibility is linked to getting contracts, getting customers, whether you're in the B2B space or a B2B, B2C space. Um, for us, when we launched Eatlish and we had to crack, say, our first customers were Nature's Basket, right? We had to woo them for 9 months before we cracked them. And that was because we were a new startup. We had to go talk to them, pitch our ideas, give them samples of our products, show them reports, lab reports, customer testimonials to prove our credibility. Now imagine that you are a technology or a fintech startup or somebody pitching a B2B solution or SaaS. Why should somebody trust you and give an access to their systems and let you have that, right? You're new, you don't have a track record, and it's a chicken and an egg story. So that's where credibility becomes extremely critical. So if you have credibility and there's somebody who has credibility who's recommending you, it makes your job much, much easier. Credibility directly links to getting capital. Like somebody said in an earlier session, raising funds is not success, but it is necessary by the nature of some businesses. And it is also, when you look at getting funds, how many of you have tried reaching out to investors in this room? Show of hands, just one? Okay, I see a lot of hands. How easy or difficult was it? Very difficult, right? But think that, and you can't blame the investors because they are inundated with mails. Like, I was on the startup side, I'm on the other side, and I know how hard their life can be. So judging comes easy on the other side, but yeah. So they're inundated. What would help them differentiate, right? If there's someone else who's doing a complete check, who's done the groundwork, has looked at your product, has looked at your concept, backs you, backs your team, that makes a huge, huge difference. So if someone who's already done the groundwork, has invested their time, effort, money in you and is backing you, your ability to get an audience with the right kind, and when I say right kind, it's not about just, every investor will not work for your businesses, right? It's not just about the money. It's about helping you get access to that bunch of people who will be able to open markets for you. So when you look at an investor, you need to see if there's a sync with your business. And, that is very, very important, and that's where credibility will come into play, your access to those investors. Now, let's just say you have the money, you've raised money, and you also have money. You need to use that money. Uh, in the previous session, somebody was saying that, once you raise money, a lot of startups go bust. And that kind of puts pressure on the rest of the startups trying to work in a similar scenario. One of the reasons for that is capital inefficiency. Uh, you look at things and you assume that you want to put your money into everything. Discounts happen, promotions happen, freebies happen. And as a founder, it's very, very essential to understand that that money is supposed to take you to a particular goal. And that's how you need to look at whether you want to put it into hiring. Do you want to put it into marketing? Is it a mix of everything? How do you bring that discipline into your financial planning so you can use this capital efficiently across board, right? So the other thing about capital efficiency is uh, you have to remember, are you raising it to get to the next level of transactions? Are you raising it to break even? And that's going to happen only when somebody's sitting out there looking at your books, every expense, and focusing on how much return on investment is it giving you. That's a question you have to ask yourself. And your matrix can be different, not just return on investment. It can be anything depending on the business that you are in. The other thing, and I can't stress enough, is delegation. There's upward delegation and downward delegation, and that is something you need to do, right? As a founder, you cannot micromanage. You have to create a team of leaders, a team of people who will run the business with as much passion. They are your ambassadors. You've got to start delegating because as a founder, your job is to be dispensable. Most of the times we get really wedded to our businesses and we want to keep pushing forward. And you have to, but you have to be dispensable so that somebody else can take the reins and grow it to the next level. Um, so, my favorite example is look at Tata's, right? Like entrepreneurship has been there forever. We've just made it cooler right now in the last couple of years. So if you look at the Tata Enterprise, they've been around since what? Independence, pre-independence days. They've moved into IT, manufacturing, cars, consultancies, name it and they're there. Do you think it was possible if there was no delegation or creation of leaders for next level? It would have never happened. So if you really want to grow that business, which is global, which is recognized, that's what you need to do. You need to start delegating and creating the next level who's going to take it. We don't talk enough about this, and I think that what we need to focus on is creating company cultures. When you're thinking of scaling up of a business, we get very narrowed down and we focus on numbers. We keep looking at numbers and saying, what are we at this month? What are we at the next month? And I think a lot of this onus rests on the support partners like investors, incubators, and accelerators to help company create and focus on that company culture. And company culture is, your employees are your first customers because they're buying into your business idea. They're buying into also your product, and they're going to go around or service, and they're the ones who are going to be selling it to other people at different levels. So whether it's HR, whether it's customer care, whether it's your sales team, whether it's your IT team, they are all your first customers. Look at Google. Like, I bet you anybody in this company would be happy to get an employment letter from Google. Is it because it's just a great company, or is it because it's got a fantastic culture that you identify with? You'll have to scroll down. Keep going. So hold on. So that's the numbers I was talking about. Look at that. If you have 56,000 startups plus in this country and only 1% acquired, is a very dismal share that you're talking about, right? So that's why the support system. Keep going. So that's what I was talking about, the first point, which is that is the chasm that you have to bridge. Get your systems in place. That's what's going to help you to deal with issues later. There will be issues, but you'll just be better equipped at lesser cost to deal with it. Credibility. Keep going. Yep. Right. So this is what I was talking about. So like I was saying, anybody in this room, all of us are entrepreneurs, but we'd give our right arm if we got a letter from Google right now. Because you love the company, you love the culture. Again, my favorite example, Tata's. Trust, culture, brand. That is what is going to take you forward. If you look at any of the top companies, you're talking about a serious investment that they have put into creating their culture. You buy the brand or the product because of the image the company represents, and it comes in from the culture that they've created. So this is a tangible and an intangible investment, and when you're focusing on scaling your startup, please don't ignore this, because this is what's going to help you in good stead. When you want to sell your company in the future, if you want somebody to invest in you, you want customers, that's what's going to get you all of it. It's one of the key assets, and we don't talk about it enough. Next one. Yes, I spoke about this. Yeah, so mentorship. And I know Bhavesh spoke about this, but so mentorship, I think we view it as a one-time session. What if you look around you, and if you look at the kind of entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs that you've had, most of them will credit a mentor. Most of the key guys in large organizations will have a mentor. So the thing about mentorship is that they help you look at your problems, your strengths, your weaknesses, and they've all had some sort of experience and expertise in what they've built, and they help you work on your goal. They help you identify problems which you probably haven't seen, and most importantly, I think what mentors help you do more than just advice is open doors. They're invested in your success. So if you look at businesses today and how they grow, most of it is for networks, right? Why are you guys here for networking, right? We're kidding if we don't say we're here for networking. We're all here to make connects. We're all here to get to know people. But when you meet people, on social media, I'm not going to name platforms, But when you connect with them on social media, when you connect with them at events, you do an exchange of cards, you reach out. If you're really lucky and your idea is really kick-ass or you have that spark, some of them get back to you. But they're not completely vested in you. You know, there is isolated pieces of advice which are given, they never get carried forward. What one needs is a dedicated mentorship, somebody who's invested and vested in your business, who works with you to grow, who connects you with the right guys, whether it is to get more business, whether it is to get the right kind of advice. So please take mentorship seriously. It is one key thing which distinguishes successful startups from the not so successful ones. Yep. Yes. Every business has some sort of regulatory minefield attached to it, right? We live in a day and age where technology is evolving, and so is the regulatory landscape. The regulators have to keep pace with it. Their ultimate job is to protect the interests of the people. When we started our food startup Eatalish, the only regulation that you had from FSSI as a marketer was to say you're a marketer, get that license. There were not too many checks in place. In the 7 years that I ran the company, those checks intensified, the labeling norms underwent changes, there were huge fines, storage things underwent a change. Um, and you have to keep pace with that, because if you don't, and if you're caught in that minefield, it's hell of a price to pay. And most importantly, your company name and brand takes a beating. So that's a minefield you need to keep yourself aware of, whether it's GST, income tax, FSSAI, RBI, SEBI, and I can't stop naming them. So, just keep yourself abreast of those regulations. Get yourself a good team of partners who know and understand the regulatory business regulatory space around your businesses. Right, and we don't talk about this. Entrepreneurs are humans, and it's very exhausting to run a business. Even when you're not in office, you're eating, breathing, sleeping, and living this business. It's physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausting to run a business. So it's all right to talk about it. It's all right to celebrate your failures. It's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and I'm telling you there's a community out there who will have a solution because they've gone through this. So it's okay to go out there and say you're exhausted, but find that time and space to do something else. It keeps you fresher. I think saying I work all the time is the worst thing you can do. Take a gap, look at the business from a distance, do stuff that helps you come back motivated to deal with it, later on the next day. Yeah. And I will end on that note saying don't lose sight of why you started. You started the business to build something of value, not valuation or funding, so don't lose sight of that. Thank you, guys.